Hello, this is Reg Kelly with Table in the Wilderness, and I guess you could call this Table at the Tractor today. I have a Memorial Day message I want to bring, and I want to call it, We're Never Selling Out to the Sorry Suckers. I been thinking really just the last few days about Memorial Day, and I want to give you some things. Number one, my dad was in the Pacific in World War II. My dad's 92 years old right now. He's about 93, a few days. He had a stroke last year, pretty rough shape. Mind's still real good and sharp, and he does the best he can. My dad was on a troop transport ship in World War II in the Pacific Island, and he said there was constant fear of the kamikazes coming down and blowing everybody out of the water all the time. Then there was constant fear of the torpedoes from submarines. But he was on that ship, and one thing, I never had any idea what that was like till I went to the Philippines in 1983 and saw all the crosses. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I want to do this Memorial Day not just for my dad, but for some other people that have been real influential in my life. We owe these people a debt of gratitude to hold on to our freedoms and not sell out our freedoms to this liberal, progressive, anti-God, anti-Bible, anti-American crowd. And so I give this to my dad today. I want to thank him for serving our country during World War II. I think about my uncle Irvin Hofford, who lived a mile south of me as I was growing up. He was in the Battle of the Bulge. He told me that for 30 days he didn't take off his boots because of the cold and the snow. He told me about losing men in his platoons, seeing people blown to pieces. I want to thank him. He's deceased and gone on to be with the Lord, but I appreciate his service. I'm thinking about my Uncle Dean Rhodes from Lebanon, Missouri, who pastored for 50 years, who was in the invasion of Okinawa. And I remember him telling me about the fact that they were told to line up on the ship, and they were given their wills the night before, and they were told that 1 out of 3 of you men are not going to come off this island. You're going to die. Sign your wills. Make sure you've given what little you have to whoever you want it to go to, because some of you ain't coming back. I remember him telling me about him working his way up through a ravine in the middle of the night and the bombs going off, and he said, Reggie, if there was anything like a hell on earth, it was that night. And he said the bombs went off, and he said, I remember looking down the little Okinawa boy with a hole through his head. And he said, God, if there's a place called hell, I don't want to go there. And it was on that island that he was called to preach. He pastored 50 some years, if I'm not mistaken. No, at least 50 years pastored when he came back. Led thousands of people to Jesus Christ and stood up for what this country's always stood for. I'm thinking right now about the Bataan, when I was in the Philippine Islands, the Bataan Death March. How many of our men were buried alive, literally buried alive, had to dig their own graves, get in them, and their men's heads cut off. Men shot through with bayonets and killed and tortured and marched without any food or water. If you've never studied the Bataan Death March, you ought to. In Corregidor Island, where General Wainwright surrendered 11,000 and some soldiers to the Japanese, and they were taking POWs all across the Japanese situation. I'm thinking about where I visited Fort Rizal, where 600 American POW men were put into an enclave, an ammunition dump, and later on were drowned in there when they allowed the tides to come in there, and they locked those men in and drowned. They found 600 of our POW men in there dead, drowned by the Japanese. I'm thinking about a man that I knew who fought on Iwo Jima, and how so many of his friends were killed and blown to pieces on Iwo Jima. And I'm thinking about the men who, at the end of World War II, who were freed by our soldiers in Japan, and when they saw the American flag, jumped in a sewer lagoon and swam through a sewer lagoon to get to our flag and kissed it. And the reason I'm upset about this thing is because I see these snowflakes and cupcakes and these flag burners and these anti-American, anti-Constitution, anti-God, anti-Bible people. And I've got my Bible and my flag with me today, and I want to tell you guys something. You try to burn this flag right here, you're going to have more problems than you ever dreamed of. Folks, we've got to come to a place where we stop this nonsense, we quit backing up, we quit giving up territory, and we start telling these people the way it's going to be. You may get by with that out on your little college campus safe space, but I'm going to tell you something. You're going to hit some of these country flyover people, these red state Americans. We're not backing up from you, and I want you to know something. Listen to me real well. We're not scared of you. Not at all. And we will whip you in the end. I'm thinking about the Korean veterans, the frozen chosen, and so many men who lost their lives and never got to see their families again. I'm thinking about the Vietnam veterans that we have many of around this country who came home and were spit on and mocked and so forth. And I want to tell you something, that's a stinking shame. And Jane Fonda ought to be hung by the neck for treason for what she did to our American troops. And by the way, any of you little Canadian fleeing Dodge drafters, yeah. No, we don't like war, and war may not be right, and there's a lot of things you can say, but our men ought to be stood behind. And I want to say today, this memorial address is basically to our veterans. And I want to thank every single one of you. Whatever you did, wherever you did it, our country owes you an undying devotion and gratitude of thanks. We owe you the best doctors, the best hospitals, the best care, the best of everything we can give to our veterans in this country. I'm thinking about those of you who fought in Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan and thousands of other places and are today across the globe. We want to thank you that we've had the right to fulfill our dreams of having a farm or a business or a house or a job or our families. We've had a right to enjoy the freedoms to go to the church of our choice, the right to free speech, the right to freedom of religion, the freedom of assembly, the blessed government that our founders gave us. And you men defended that, and we thank you for that. So anyway, vets, we appreciate it. And you flag burners, I'm just going to be honest with you, I ain't no mood to mess with you right now. And I want to encourage the people across this country. I want to address another group of people, our policemen. You cop haters, I'd say you need to be careful in this part of the country. Don't give me that cop hating stuff. You better be thankful there's some policemen out here that are keeping the peace and that care about people's lives. So you libs and you progressives and you American haters, you Bible haters, you flag haters, you Constitution haters, you freedom haters, you that have been duped by Marxism and Darwinism, we're going to ultimately defeat you. If we don't defeat you in this life at this place, we will defeat you through Jesus Christ, because he's King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And can I tell you something? For all you progressive liberals, the devil is your commander-in-chief, and he's a defeated, whipped foe. And you're going to wind up following him in the lake of fire, according to this Bible you hate, and it's the truth. So anyway, veterans, we thank you. Those who have served our country, thank you. And then I want to say in closing, we owe those in the past who came to this country and brought their Bibles, wrote our Constitution, and gave us our freedoms. We owe them the solemn commitment that we will send forth these same freedoms to our children in the next generation. We owe it to our children and our grandchildren to give them this heritage of freedom, faith, family, the most important things we have. Thank you, vets. Have a great Memorial Day. Stay safe and be proud. This is Reg Kelly, Table in the Wilderness. Thank you for listening. Until next time.